I went from 14th to 2nd in top split daily race seat a day, and despite the fact that I got to 2nd place in kind of a funny circumstance, for the last 3 or 4 laps, the top 8 people were only within a few seconds of each other. When the races first dropped, it was kind of controversial because we've had Deep Forest so many times with Group 3 that people were kind of tired of it, but with the new Bape, the new physics, and especially the MR update, it made the racing so much closer, and as you can see, there are a lot of different cars that ended up being viable. In this video, I'm going to show you how I went from 14th to 2nd place in just 14 short laps, and I'm going to talk about why this race is actually peak Gran Turismo 7. If you've ever watched my stream, then you know that I like to race from the back. I don't like to set a qualifying time when it comes to the daily races. This race was actually completely different than the races we usually have because most of the time the competitive drivers don't actually do the normal daily races. I believe the top 4 or top 5 were all very fast European top or 2nd split drivers. And if you know anything about top and 2nd split over in the EMEA region, that is just as competitive, if not much more competitive than anywhere else in the entire world when it comes to Gran Turismo. If you see behind me in 14th position, that's V Diesel, also known as VQS Drifter, who is one of the fastest drivers in the world. And 2 drivers ahead of me is Grove Street, who's also another YouTuber. He's a very fantastic dude, a great driver. We had lots and lots of talent in this race. If I decided to start from the front, I definitely would have had my work cut out for me, and it still would have been a fantastic battle, but I was really lucky to find really good racing all the way from the back, all the way to the front. I know I've raced Drew before, but I can't remember exactly the kind of interactions I had with him, but it turns out I can definitely trust him. Right here, I was actually trying to give him more space than I needed to. I ended up driving directly into the wall, trying to stay behind Lewis and stay away from Drew, but it ended up just fine. I didn't take any kind of damage, and that was fantastic. Lewis in front of me is a very fast former controller player who is now driving on wheel, and in fact, I believe is on his 2nd wheel. He's still getting used to it because he just got it in the mail, I believe, yesterday. You'll notice up in 3rd position in the race is someone known as Mr. Moneybags. I actually don't know who it is, but I suspect it's another fast driver on an alt, and if not, it's just another quick driver from our region. Now, Drew behind me could have definitely passed me, but for whatever reason, he decided to push me. I'm not sure if he wasn't quite confident in his ability to stay in front of me during the twisty section, or if he was just playing the long game, hoping that he would work with me and then eventually take a position later on, but either way, it was appreciated. I really appreciated driving with you, Drew, and I don't know why I said appreciated twice in the same sentence, but we're going to roll with it. Lewis in front of me is very fast in the Lamborghini, and I definitely don't have quite as much experience in that thing as of late, though I did spend a bunch of time in it in GT Sport and a little bit at the beginning of GT7, though I haven't really driven it in months. So I was really surprised when I decided to make it my anti-meta car this week. It is incredibly stable and it's fantastic on tires. It's pretty much the opposite of what it used to be, and I absolutely love it now. I believe it's partially because the current Bape and physics are working pretty well together, and partially because of the weak slipstream, but most cars are able to keep up, especially if you can stay in slipstream. The Supra, the almighty Supra, is still way too OP, but lots of different cars can keep up, and if you have enough luck and enough skill, then you can keep up. Now, Mr. Dan Turismo, I felt so bad. I had already caused him to crash in the race right before this. I was between him and Tonic, and while I don't think either of them meant to squeeze me whatsoever, I also got hit in the back, probably just because the person behind didn't realize that we were going to all slow down so much. Everyone was trying to be super careful because we were 3 wide. I don't think any of us wanted to be there, and then the guy behind, I don't know if it was Drew or the person behind him, accidentally bumped me, and in the end, Dan Turismo kind of took the worst of it. So again, sorry, Dan. I told my friends to tell you sorry if any of them knew you, but if you're watching, Dan, I apologize. I definitely didn't mean to cause you to crash in the last race, and I definitely didn't mean to push you out there. Now, with that little bit of rear damage, I was afraid I was going to lose my position, but again, Drew pushed me, and I was very grateful for that. Now, I was behind a Lambo, who was behind another Lambo, and I was pretty sure that I was going to be faster than Tonic. In fact, I was so sure that I decided to pull off a really hilarious move on him in just a little bit, but I did wait for the perfect opportunity for that. I've grown to really love this track, and I haven't always loved it since it came to Gran Turismo 7. In fact, when it first came out, I was pretty upset that they had changed my beloved Deep Forest, which is my 2nd favorite in all of Gran Turismo history. But I think with the current Bape, it's really showing that with the way that the game's working right now, it can make for some really, really close racing despite the advantages or disadvantages of the various cars. The middle section is definitely for the handling cars, and the front and back straights are definitely for the power cars. And you'd think that because 2 of the 3 sectors are for power cars, then it would make it even more imbalanced. And in fact, in the past, it had been, but I think with the right Bape and the right tire multiplier, the right fuel multiplier, it can make for some really fun racing. Now, like I mentioned before, I was pretty sure that I was going to be faster than Tonic, so I decided that I need to get in front of Tonic as fast as I possibly could. I always have this little bit of a panic feeling when I'm behind a driver that I think might hold me back. It has nothing to do personally against Tonic. I just thought that I could be faster than him, so I wanted to get in front of him as fast as I could. And instead, I completely outbraked myself, outplayed myself, and ended up directly behind him. Now, it's unfair, but it did actually put me closer to him. I'm not sure if I upset Mr. Tonic there, but Tonic, if you're listening, if you're watching, I apologize. That was a really stupid move on my part there. What I think is also really clear from this is that Tonic really isn't holding me back at all. He was very fast through this track, and so I was just being selfish. So again, sorry, Mr. Tonic. I'm just realizing now that we both have these hilarious chrome liveries, and I think it's the perfect opportunity to show off what the PS5 Pro can do when I can render things in 4K. These cars look fantastic. I've always thought that the Huracan looks beautiful, and of course Gran Turismo graphics are the best in the genre. This track, with these cars and these liveries, I think look absolutely incredible. Anyways, back to the race. You may have noticed when I first got behind Tonic, I was kind of testing to see if he was checking his rear view or if he was going to react to anything I did. So right before the braking zone, I moved wide as if I was going to go for a move, but of course it was just a dummy and I didn't. He didn't react whatsoever, and then of course I made that really silly dive on him, so I decided I have tortured this man enough. I'm only going to pass him if I have a real opportunity, and because I was close enough to him this time, I was able to get all the way next to him, and he didn't argue. He didn't fight at all. I have raced Tonic in the past, and I actually don't even remember what his pace was, but I find it fun when people do want to race, and I also am very thankful when people just let me go when it appears that I am faster. And so this was my opportunity to try to drive away and demonstrate that I did actually have a reason to try to go for a pass. So this is, I believe, the third time in this video. Tonic, I'm sorry for being a butthead to you, but I appreciate the racecraft and I appreciated racing you. I'm not sure exactly what happened with my recording today, but my recording glitched out, so I didn't get the actual live view of me doing this race. This is all from the replay, and the only reason that that isn't quite the best is you can't see the deltas between myself and any of the drivers. You can see that Lewis is right there, and then there's a pack directly in front of him, so of course my goal is to get really close to them, but what you can't tell unless you look at the map at the top right is that everyone was so incredibly bunched up. All I had to do was get into Lewis's slipstream, which I wasn't yet, and I should be able to keep up with them for the rest of the race. I am glad that you can see the splits though, so you can see that Hokiyama had a 26.2 and I was actually purple at this point, and on the hard compounds that is actually pretty good. It's not lightning fast or anything like that, but when it comes to this region and when it comes to just a casual daily race, that is pretty good pace for being on the hard tires. You may notice that we are on lap 5, and if you've done this race, you probably know that lap 5 is actually a really good time to go in the pits, and I almost did, but I wasn't really prepared for it, and I had gone over the inline, so I would have gotten a 3-second penalty if I had gone in. I was very lucky to have not gone in and made that decision at the last second, but I was also extra lucky for what was about to go down here. Now, if I were really close to the people ahead, then I definitely should have gone into the pits for the opportunity to get a little bit better track position by performing an undercut, since we were going to go on a faster tire compound. But since there weren't any other drivers that were really close, it did make sense for me to stay out and hope that I could just get clean air. And then of course this happened. Our friend Lewis made just a tiny mistake, and when he rejoined, he got between myself and Tonic. Now Tonic wasn't exactly harassing me yet, but Tonic was close enough that on the next straight he could have potentially pulled off a pass if he wanted to, or maybe attempted a pass, and if he did that, it would have slowed both of us down enough that we might not be able to catch any of the people in the fast pack. So because of Lewis's mistake right there, there's a potential that that is what solidified our attempt at a really good finishing position later on in the race. Now what happened after this was I did go into the pits, and Lewis of course followed me in, so did Tonic, and they were pretty close for a bit, but then I had some really good clean laps and I pulled a bit of a gap on both of them. And as proud as I am of my pace for those few laps, it's kind of boring to watch during a recap. If you want to actually see what I did, this VOD will be available on my Twitch for quite some time, and of course I do urge you to come and watch me on Twitch as well, because I stream there much more often than I stream here. But I digress. Some of that was fun, but the real fun hasn't even begun yet, so we're going to jump straight ahead to that. Jumping all the way to lap 11, our beautiful friend Sweet Lou decided to push me along the straights when he did catch up to me, which didn't take very long because he's incredibly fast, and because all of the guys ahead are in various weird cars and they're all battling, it allowed us to completely close the gap, and we made it to the leading pack. Golty directly in front of us was in the older Ford GT, which, if you remember from previous iterations of the Bape, was the only car that really worked here. In front of him is our friend Slayers in the Z4, which is a pretty underrated car, and especially in the hands of someone who can drive extremely well like our friend Slayers, it is formidable. In front of him is someone I don't actually know, named Benjamaniac, but he is in the extremely fast OP Supra. And then, of course, we've got the DBR9, driven by Mr. Hokiyama, who I'm told is Nicholas, who potentially has the highest DR in the entire world, something like 109,000. The kid is incredibly fast. You're probably familiar with him if you followed the competitive scene in Gran Turismo. The car doesn't handle very well, and by itself, it isn't that incredibly fast, but in Slipstream, it is so ridiculously fast that he decided to just stick right behind Slayers and push him. And so you can see he's outpacing the Supra. Speaking of outpacing the Supra, I had a really good run, and I did get in front of Mr. Benjamaniac. I also got that push from Golty, which helped me stay ahead of Lewis, and that kept all of us together. This is incredibly close racing. Actually, I want to run it back and show this view. I really want to show and just illustrate how close the margins were. I love when we can end up racing like this. I love racing with people that I can trust. It's so much fun to be able to race at this pace, this close, in such a ridiculous track, and not really have to worry about anything. I trust all these guys explicitly. Implicitly? I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I don't know what the word is, but I love this. This is exactly why I play Gran Turismo, for moments like this. I'm fully aware that not everyone gets this opportunity. Not everyone has the opportunity to race with people that can actually control their cars, especially at this kind of pace. But if you ever find yourself in a position where you can trust people like this and race people like this, it's so much fun to be able to actually go side by side and really battle people. There's so many things to consider when you get onto any of the straights, whether it's the back straight or the front straight, on this track specifically, especially when it comes to having so many different cars. So many of the different cars have different weaknesses, different strengths, but essentially what everyone's trying to do is make sure that they're in the proper position to pull off some kind of move at the very last moment so no one can get any kind of revenge move on them before the finish line. If you can pull off a pass right at the last corner, or if you can position yourself to be behind the person that you're trying to get in front of at that last corner, then you could potentially pull off a pass leading to the finish line, of course. But of course, we're still a few laps away from that. We still have 2 laps away, so most people are just going to stay straight in a line, potentially just push each other, and maybe go for a move leading to the twisty section, and that is why I decided to defend. Now, usually, I don't actually defend very hard when I'm racing my friends here. I know the relative pace of most of the people, and I know if my friends can go faster than me, so a lot of the times, I just try to do damage control. I just try to make sure that if I'm going to lose a position, I only lose one position, and if I put myself in the right place, then I could potentially get it back. But I decided to just be aggressive. I was confident in my pace this time, and I decided I was going to continue defending against Lewis, despite the fact that I know for a fact he is usually much faster than me. Now, I'm thinking about all these things as I'm looking ahead. I'm now behind Hokiyama and Slayers, and I know that Hokiyama is going to be able to pass Slayers leading into the straights as long as he doesn't make a move too early. We've got Wind, who recently came back to the game in the Mustang, and that is an absolutely terrible car, but he's an incredible driver. Just a fantastic, incredibly fast driver, so he can make, if anyone can make the Mustang work, it's going to be him. And in front of him is someone that I don't actually know. Like I mentioned before, it's who I suspect to be some kind of alt account, but I don't actually know. But they're in the Viper, and the Viper is very strong. I know that the Viper is going to be able to pull away from the Mustang, regardless of who's driving it. So right now I'm thinking Wind's going to finish in second. The Mustang's probably going to win, and there's a potential for Slayers and or Hokiyama to make a move, and I didn't expect Hokiyama to get in front of Slayers this early. Now, with just 1 lap to go, I decided I'm going to just continue doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to try to make any aggressive moves. If I have to, I'm going to defend. But since I don't have to, I'm just going to try to stay as close as possible. And if disaster strikes or if someone makes a mistake, then hopefully I'm going to be in a good position to try to make some kind of move. As it stands right now, I'm pretty sure no one's going to try to make any moves on me. I don't think Lewis is going to try to pass me unless he gets a really good opportunity. So as long as I stay really close to Slayer's ahead and I get a really, really good exit onto the back straight, then I should actually be golden. Since Lewis and I have the same car, we're going to be dealing with the same slipstream forces, and I just have to essentially get a better exit than him or the same exit, and I should be good because, as you can see, I'm actually closer to Slayer's than he was to me. And of course, I made that mistake. Someone made a comment on stream the other day. Every single time that I say I absolutely have to nail a corner, I mess it up. So I should not have been thinking of that. Now, with Lewis right on my tail, and what looks like Wind having to serve a penalty, I almost go to the inside and realized that's probably going to be a disaster. And so I set myself up to go for the old switcheroo, and disaster did strike. Now you can't see it from this because, again, it's not the replay from the stream, but Lewis has a 5-second penalty. And of course, Lewis is upset about that, shaking his car around. I shouldn't say he's upset, but it is pretty funny. He ended up getting the 5-second penalty. Now, you might be crying dirty driving. You might be saying that we're all trying a little too hard and people are getting a little too crazy, but all of these people are friends. I don't think anyone was actually upset about any of this, but I do think it's funny. We should actually go back and look at exactly what happened. Back on the back straight, as I mentioned, I got a really terrible exit, which is exactly what I didn't want to do, but it looked like our friend Wind had to serve a penalty, and because of that, I could either go inside or just stay safe on the outside. I chose the safe route, Lewis chose the crazy direction, and it looks like both Wind and Lewis collided into our friend Slayer's. But what's really funny is, if you watch the replay, it looks like Slayer's may have made contact with Hokiyama, regardless of what happened with Wind and with Lewis, but in reality, I think everyone just kind of crashed into each other anyways, and I benefited. That is the story of how I got to second place from 14th place. We're going to watch this again, but I can't stress enough that all of these people are friends. I don't think anyone was actually upset at how this race went. I think it's pretty funny, and I definitely would not have gotten second place if all of this didn't go down, so obviously I can't complain about it. But anyways, this is a fantastic race. This is the kind of thing that makes me absolutely love Gran Turismo with all of its flaws, all of the ridiculousness. I love situations like this. I love races like this. Even when they end like that, it's still a lot of fun, and it was really close racing. And with that, thank you for watching. Please let me know if you like this format. This is something I'd actually like to do more of. And of course, I'm going to leave you with a look at my current members. I love every single one of you. Thank you so much for supporting me. Until next time.